call the meeting to order. I will do a roll call. We have Bonnie Sears, myself, Rebecca Hanson, Bill Bolton, Chris Buckley, Marianne Barnsley, and Brian Murphy. We will review now the minutes from our work session on September 5th. Has everyone had a chance to review the thorough minutes from the 5th? Any corrections, comments, edits for the
I
minutes?
have a question.
Yeah.
On the second page, under 4, review of minutes, the number 2, July 18th, says Chris Buckley made a motion to approve the minutes, and then at the bottom it says Chris Buckley abstained. Can you make a motion and then
Abstain from voting? Yeah.
abstain? You can, so
Yeah,
I can
think
make
so.
a motion even if I wasn't at those, because I don't recall doing that, but
Well, I mean, you could also make a motion to approve and then vote against it. You know, just to approve second it for the record, to get it on the table.
Okay, all right.
And then vote against it.
that's why it was a question.
That's an interesting, I'll get the answer to that, Chris. I don't know.
I just don't remember it going down like that.
Yeah, it's also a way of, maybe ending a discussion that might be taking too long and getting us to make a decision on it. So if you're sick of us talking about the minutes from the meeting where you were not in attendance. All right. Any other corrections for the minutes?
I have another. On, just below that, under administrative matters, number 1, on the very first sentence after plat for Stone Energy to sign, it says, Mr. Murphy stated there was a disconnect between the engineer and the intent of the parent company. And was that disconnect, did it have something to do with the engineer delivering 3 sets of plans?
No, it had to do with the engineers not being able to answer the questions that we put before them concerning the site. They were mostly concerned with, the grades and the layout. When we started asking questions about screening and stuff like that,
Should there be more explanation in here? Because I think that would, that sort of just hangs there, that there, should, I don't know, should the disconnect be explained?
I think it's sort of incidental to the, or not, it's not important to.
Or should the whole thing come out?
I don't think it needs to be in there necessarily at all. I mean, it's not something I would just say get rid of, but I just don't think it's, really just that we need to sign the plat for the Stone Energy plans is pretty much, that's the point of that there.
Right, so, but, that line makes it seem like there should be more, why not just get rid of that?
So can we strike the first 2 sentences there, Brian?
yes. Of course, because the engineer delivering the 3 sets of plans is covered further down with the, found that everything was covered, including the fuel tank storage area. That was one of the conditions, that they show it on the plans. That's why
Okay.
I brought up that the plans were
Okay,
done.
so strike the first sentence and then it's fine.
Okay.
Right.
If you want to cut me out of the minutes, that's fine.
As much as we can. Like you're never here.
Right.
Anything else? Any other corrections? If Marianne wanted to end this discussion, even though she was not at the meeting, she could make a motion.
That's a lot of pressure. I might disagree
But you don't
with that
have, you
at
don't
the
have
end.
to.
I make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Approve?
That's good.
I'd second if possible.
So the motion on the table is to approve the minutes as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
You can't vote.
Because I wasn't here.
Right. You have to be an
Wonder that
abstention.
question.
Any abstentions? Okay. So come next up, a site plan review of a proposal to construct a 38 by 38 slab to erect a walk-in freezer at the rear of an existing commercial parcel on PID number 208-035-002 on Fairgrounds Road in the agricultural zone. All right, do we have the applicant or someone representing the applicant? If you can come up and to the podium, we'd like to go through, have you maybe introduce your project, and then we'll talk about the completeness of our application, and then once we determine it's complete, we can accept it as complete, and then open up the public hearing. So if you could give us a brief presentation on your application, that would be great.
Okay, my name is Jeff Day, and good evening. My plan is to, I have an ice sculpting business, and I'm on Fairgrounds Road, and we're kind of growing. So I need a larger freezer, and we have freezers inside. So the plan is to build a freezer outside the building. We need a foundation to do so. It's 26 by 36. And we have, at the levels, the lot's already level. Brian's been there to see what we have, what we are as far as the grades and all that stuff. I did make this map kind of to show the cement pad. I'm showing the lights in the building already. We do have some drainage on the side of the building to a large catch basin that's already existing. We did that a year ago to keep the water from heading towards the road. I don't know what else.
Okay, yeah, no, you're fine. So I think what we can maybe do is look through some of I had some questions about the completeness of this application, and yours is a relatively simple project. We don't have a simple project site plan. We review,
Sure.
we have a just, whether you're doing something that's 60,000 square feet or, something quite small. It's the same process. So bear with us as we make sure this.
Likewise, this is my first time here. So.
Yeah. We're not here to make it difficult for you. We're here to make sure everything fits within the structure that exists within our zoning ordinance. So, so I think that, any questions from the board before I start running through my thoughts here? All right. So I think I have a few questions about, there's some things that I'm just not seeing on the checklist here. And, I'm trying to have my figure out what to say here. As far as context within the larger neighborhood, the abutters, things like that aren't on the map that we have. And I just want to recognize that this is a simple project. We are able to waive these and determine the application is complete. Is there anything that we see on the regular checklist that we think is important to us to know as we make a decision about this project?
I could speak on behalf of the owner if that helps.
Not yet. I can,
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
I will open it up for a public hearing, and we'd be happy to
Sorry.
hear from you at that moment, at that time.
I always, go ahead, Brian.
The blanks under the first heading, on the second page.
Well, I see the non-applicable, for sure,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
and that's essentially why those were left off.
Yeah, I guess what I'm seeing is, the vicinity sketch, existing public streets. It's just hard for me to see exactly where this is located by looking at the current map. And so the question I'm asking the board, are we okay with what we're presented with are we willing to accept this application as complete the way it is and then make a ruling based on that? Or do we need more information before we can determine that this application is complete?
Have abutters been notified?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All that touch were notified, per our rules. We erase the streets and just pretend that the center line is the property line, and we notify anybody that touches it.
Yeah, so I think what we just don't have is, often where you've got the list of the abutters, or they're named on the plan itself. And again, this is just us going through the checklist that exists. There's no, this is a simple project. Skip this step. So
Normally, I don't attach abutters' names.
Okay.
Would you like that?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't.
Yeah, it
and
depends
that-
on the
yeah.
application.
So-
Sometimes we'll get a cover sheet.
Yep. So I assume that the butters have been noticed. I don't necessarily need to see the names, but I'm
And
just,
I always remember seeing them. I don't remember an application coming through that didn't, but maybe if they're not there, I don't notice, but I
I
mean,
know,
that's,
I know I've asked this question before when I haven't seen them on another project that was a relatively simple project as well.
And that, I can get that in a heartbeat.
and I would take your word for that. I mean, I guess
No, but
whenever
that's
a
why I'm asking
project's
if
going
you guys
in.
would like to see
Yeah.
that for any application. It's just one more piece that we can put in there.
Someone can also just make a motion to accept this application as well, and I'll stop babbling.
I would like to make that motion to accept it. I mean, I've been by there, so I've seen it.
Every day, right, Bonnie? At least
Just
once?
every day. And it looked pretty simple, it's just freezer gonna be out in the back and
Yeah, yeah.
nobody even know it's there.
So the motion is
To accept
as complete.
application as complete.
Okay.
And do we all know where this is exactly?
It's at the corner of Fairgrounds and Steel Drive.
And we all know where Steel Drive is?
Well, I know exactly
Is
where
this
that building is.
Farina's old garage?
Yeah.
Right.
First one,
Okay.
the small one.
So we have a motion on the table, we just need a second.
A
Second.
second.
Oops,
Okay.
excuse me.
Oh, now everyone's racing to it.
I'll take Mary Ann's.
Okay, so all those in favor of accepting this application as complete, please signify by saying
Aye.
Aye.
aye. All right. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So now, unless there's any questions from the board for the applicant, I will open it up to a public hearing.
Okay, I'll throw a question out.
Okay.
Should have done it before, but, so that, yeah, east point appears to be like right on the 15-foot setback. Is that the case,
Say
or
that again? I'm sorry, Bill.
northeast, the?
Yes, yes, it is. When I first spoke to Jeff, it was located across the line. I asked him if there was any way he could move it back to avoid the ZBA. So he redrew that. So it may come to within inches of the setback. But, I mean, that could only be verified afterwards by a surveyor. But it's close, but not encroaching. He moved it enough to still work at the size that he wanted, but to keep that corner out of the setback.
Maybe it's kind of a naive question too, but so the building itself is going to be like centered on that pad or something? Or-
Yeah, so the pad's a little bit bigger than the
like-
structure. Yeah.
Yep, so it's going to have like a lip around the whole thing, or?
No, this will be the cement. This is not the building. The building will be on this.
Yeah, and will the building be located so there'll be a lip around the whole thing for the building's like 26 by something or other?
Yes. Yes,
it's gonna have like
yeah, so
5 feet
the pad's a little wider. So there'll be like an apron in the front of it so we can work with like a forklift and two-wheelers and stuff. So the door is on the side of it. The door will be outside, and there's a door, the rear door, so we'll be able to go from outside into the cooler. And then either that or into the trailer to take it for deliveries.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
So as far as the setback and stuff, it doesn't matter, like, the whole pad can move and I still have room for what I need to do. So that's why it wasn't a problem.
Yeah, and I guess the answer to your question is the footprint of the freezer is smaller than the
Right.
pad.
Yes. I was
just
So there
wondering
will
how
be a
it's gonna-
rim around, concrete around.
Well, that's what I was, whether or not there's a rim around the whole thing, or is the building going to be like on the easternmost edge?
Yes.
So, okay, and the building itself won't be in the setback or even approach it because it's, okay,
Everything will be out of it.
gotcha. All right.
Other questions from the board? Okay, it is 6:45. I would like to invite any members of the public to speak. Please do so in front of a microphone and state your name.
Microphone. All right. Well, my name's Colby Valentine. I was here for my own project, but also I'm a neighbor to Jeff. As far as the butters, I might not be in a butter because I'm on the other side of the yellow line, but I did get a notice about a butter. And I was also standing up because there was location, I believe, or Jeff is locating it behind the building. So as far as line of sight for the town, it really is not gonna change. It's still the existing building and this is out behind it. So I really don't think it will have any dramatic effect or impact or looks on the town or the main road. And I think it will actually improve and help his business. Instead of loading on the side of the main road, he'll now have access out back to load trailers. So, I mean, that's another safety point of view, to not be working, you know, it's a tight area between the front of his building and the fairgrounds road. So that will also help him load out back. And that's all I have to say. I think it will, you know, do well for him. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? It is 6:47. I am closing the public hearing, bringing it back to the board. Any other questions from the board? Comments? A motion, perhaps?
Could I make a motion that we approve this application for the freezer?
So, any seconds?
I'd second that.
It's my turn.
Okay, I'm next,
All right,
okay?
so
I'm sorry, I thought you had already done.
the motion on the table is to approve this application. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank the board for taking the time to look at this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Next up, a site plan review of a proposal to change the use of an existing building at 10 Hamilton Way, PID number 213-012-002, to landscaping retail, and to add pergolas on two sides and to construct a gravel road on PID number 213-012-000. The property lies in the industrial commercial development zone. Okay. Would you like to come up and speak into the microphone and introduce your project? We're going to go through that same procedure where we'll ask you to give a presentation on the completeness of your application, covering any waivers that you ask for in the application itself. And then we'll make a ruling on whether or not the application is complete. And
Okay.
we'll move on from there.
All right.
Oh, is it right on there?
Yeah.
Oh, on this one?
The next
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Would it be best to use the chair and slide it back, or should I slide this forward, or?
So I think if you just put it right on
I
the,
didn't know if you guys would be able to see.
we want the camera to be able to see it as, I don't even know what the camera is.
I think it's right there, look at it.
So we want the camera to be able to see it.
So right here is best then?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay, so-
Yeah. If we need to see it up close, we can,
Okay.
oh, yeah.
Not a problem. Tried to make it as big as possible. All right. Well, good evening, members of the board. My name's Colby Lenatine. I own Three Lakes Landscaping, Three Lakes Docking, and a few other ventures. Was looking to start moving forward with a new venture on Tenny Mountain Highway. I currently own the 3 parcels in Hamilton Way. And so was looking to open a landscape supply yard rental with our dock business. We'd have docking materials there. And that would be kind of the starting point. I guess with the building, we'd also do a small engine repair. We've already made lines and registered with a couple of vendors right now to be selling small engines within the building. So it kind of, this idea kind of came about, have a very large interest in collecting different types of stone. We travel around New England harvesting for our own projects, and we always harvest in bulk. Kind of seemed to make sense to have another place to sell it in between instead of sitting in my yard currently. Also, with equipment, we have at times additional equipment sitting around. So, was looking to find other avenues to collect more income. So instead of having it sit idle at my shop, we figured maybe we could start trying to do rental. Currently, we service everything, so it kind of makes sense. It works out well. I understand there's always pitfalls within that specific business, but we're set up currently to maintain. So it just is a kind of a natural development into this here. So that's kind of what I'm looking to do. I don't know if you're looking for more specifics, but ultimately we'll have, I don't know if you want me to get into the plan itself a little bit more, the current site conditions of the property, or
I think
how would you like me to proceed?
I think what would maybe be helpful, and I'm just gonna, I think to be clear, this is a change or an expansion of use essentially from what's existing. It's still going to be, because what was existing there was a retail operation and later
Correct.
storage.
So essentially,
with-
sorry to interrupt, change of use, I guess, is what I was trying
Right.
to go for.
Still within the retail zone, but then there's also the other parcel as well, which hadn't been used in this way before.
I actually own 2 parcels on the left side going in, but
Okay.
really the effort is really starting with the parcels adjacent to Tenny Mountain Highway. That first vacant lot and then the building.
So again, this is a relatively simple site plan review. It's,
The main reason I brought the top site plan, I guess, was I can either address drainage concerns now or get into layout of the stone yard more specifically. I just didn't know how you'd like to proceed through it a little more organized.
The last time that property was actually pursued to put a building there or something, remember that? There were some drainage issues that were identified, and so you're gonna be remediating that, I guess, is that?
I'm not aware of anything with that aspect. I did know at one point there was an application to build a building on that lot. I am currently not looking to build
Right.
anything on that lot.
Yep.
Currently, all the drainage and all the site work and everything was installed prior to, the initial developer back in
Okay.
2009, which everything that is laid out on this drawing is installed. There's drainage swales along the entire side, there's settling ponds, there's inflow inlets that then tie into the sewer to deal with surface runoff and such, both with that current building and the whole road and development. So,
can you bring the whole, I know I
Sure.
said the camera needs to see it, but we need to see it too. So could you orient us to the site?
sure.
Now that it's right in
So
front of
here's
us?
Tenny Mountain Highway. This is the existing furniture warehouse building. And then this is the parcel where most of the drawing that I have in your packet is gonna take place. This lot will sit pretty much idle for now. So here's the main Hamilton Way coming in. Starting, I guess, because this road kind of crowns a little bit. Going along here, there's a very faint line, which is a blue dashed line that is the drainage swale on the uphill side of the road, which catches the catch basin, drainage riprap, comes under culvert, and then settling pond here, which is all installed. Otherwise, drainage comes this way, and there's a catch basin here. Also dealing with the roof, there's drainage in the parking lot, roof, and comes under the road, and then into the main sewer and out. So that's drainage for that area. Like I said, I'm not looking to do anything like major as far as buildings. I'm not looking to do extensive amounts of excavation or dirt moving. The lot is relatively level. I mean, we will be moving some material just to level blocks in the yard a little bit. Current grades are extremely close though.
What about parking lot? Will you be paving the parking lot?
So this parking lot is paved. This is where, customers for the building, rental, buying of anything in here, customers to look at the stone yard would park here. If I could just jump over to my other drawing, I could reference where like contractors might park and such. So it was designed in a kind of like a one-way flow of traffic. My thoughts are that, I don't know, it might actually be better to unload this way instead of making a hard turns with a loaded trailer, but ultimately in this area, there would be a pull-off area for commercial parking, contractors with trailers. I would be unloading the tractor trailers, stone and stuff that might come in. So that would be off the road. here. I mean, once again, here's Hamilton Way. So everything entrance-wise, I decided to place it here. One, because the grade's closest. Two, if there was like a tractor trailer, it wouldn't be blocking anything flow of traffic. I figured further away from the entrance would help with flow of traffic and line of sight and such. I guess then to just continue with this, my idea is these round circles here is just kind of like placing some boulders until I can do more work just for security reasons. But then the rental equipment, we kind of just sit here, excavator, skid steers, the bark blower, stuff like that. Bin material here and here, just kind of trying to tuck it to the wood line so we're not looking at tons of concrete cubes, but still line of sight so that we can see the different materials. And then like pallets of stone, all the places that we harvest from, field stone, bluestone, you name it. So that's kind of how it's going to lay out with the bin material and stone for now, and it'll kind of migrate. I'm sorry, I don't know which direction that is. I guess south into that second lot as it evolves a little bit. With the current building, I wanted to give it a little more character, a little more presentable for the town, a little more eye appealing. So I wanted to do pergolas. I mean, eventually, maybe hanging baskets with annuals. I'm not sure entirely all yet, but was trying to give it some character, break it up a little bit. And then within the building, on the back end of the building, which is in this area here, there's not a massive commercial door, but a door that like a forklift could go through, or if you had to put like together a mower, or if you wanted to put a plow together. So commercial here, and then like the small engine stuff will sit in the back part of the building, and then retail forward. Have the location of the dumpster, and we'd enclose that. I guess, I don't know, it's kind of the crash course on that.
We're talking the sign easement.
Yeah, okay. So currently, there's a sign that sits here for the building. What I wanted to do was, since I own both parcels, I wanted to relocate the, I guess you would call it the common area sign for the development to this side of the parcel. One, just because it was double signs, I kind of thought that would be busy. Two, line of sight for the building. And I wanted to do this water feature sign that I had in mind. So I was proposing or wanted to relocate it here. And so I was proposing or presenting that idea as well. I don't know how much, if that's fine detail, but I don't know. I think that would come back to essentially the association voting, I would think.
The association for the other
which isn't
property owners
really-
in that,
there
yeah.
isn't even
Okay.
really formed, but it's a majority rule, which I own 3 parcels of the 5 anyhow.
So you
So-
win, yeah. Yeah.
Not to be, whatever, bully or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was probably part of the reason why we bought 3 parcels, but.
Would that ultimately be a shared sign for
It
all?
would be, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it would be the common area for the parcels.
Okay.
And that's why he asked for the sign easement instead of just a sign, because it allows extra stuff without jumping through hoops for future tenants.
I was just trying to mainstream all at the same time.
Brian, is that, I mean, I can flip open the zoning ordinance, but you're here, so, so if a sign is representing multiple businesses, does that
Correct.
allows for a bigger area
If
permitted?
it's proposed
Okay,
that
okay,
way, and those dimensions can be set here.
Okay,
There's 5 lots in this subdivision, so you figure, 5 panels probably. Chances are that cumulatively, they would be greater than 100 square foot.
right,
You can set a cap on that as
Okay.
well,
all right.
just to kind of speed the process along for future development.
Yep,
And truthfully, the development sign, it wasn't something I was really looking to push on right away to spend tons of money on. I mean, the sign, I got enough money that's gonna be going on with other stuff to not tie it up with a big sign for the development at this point in time. I really wanted to focus my effort with my own current sign.
okay. So before we get ahead of ourselves, I think that's something we can certainly deal with, but I think, after we determine whether or not because we've not determined the application is complete yet, right? Okay. Making sure I'm not remembering something or forgetting something that just happened a few minutes ago. So, looking at the things that are required of all projects, do we, are we good to, does anyone have any questions about the completeness of this project or this application? No? Then maybe someone has a motion about maybe accepting this application as complete.
Is it my turn to make it? No,
It's
that's my
yours,
turn to
Bill.
make a second, I think.
I have it here, let me go back to see this.
I move that we accept this application as complete.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor of accepting this application as complete?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay. All right, so the things to think about, first I did want to say something that, just thinking about how we've been working on our zoning and doing some site visits, and how this seems like this is a little bit in the periphery of the Tenny Mountain Highway, is a little further out there, but this seems like a good use at that, the density that this requires, the space from the more centralized commercial stuff in the main part of the Tenny Mountain Highway. This just seems like a good use. It's also redevelopment of a piece of, an existing building. So I just wanted to say that. And so the things to think about are, it seems like the sign, if we want to make a determination on size of the sign. And I know it says in the application about salt storage, just make sure that's a condition of approval as well, that if salt storage goes in there, it's got a hard bottom and a roof. So I would think that that might be a condition of approval as well. So I can open it up to the public hearing while we think about the sign, while also listening to the comments of the public. All right, it is 7:02 and a half. I'm gonna open the public hearing. All right, 7:02 3/4, closing the public hearing. Bring it back to the board. Any questions for the applicant before we talk about signs?
Just curious about the small engine repair. Do we have to be concerned with oil, gas, any of those things? Is that any sort of issue?
If it was to be done outside, yes.
Okay,
But you're proposing to do it
Yeah, everything will
indoors.
be inside.
And it's a concrete floor in that building.
gotcha.
So, yeah, they do want you to put it on a hard surface if you're
Okay.
storing outside materials.
Gotcha.
Got a question about the general use. So are you going to market this to, like people in the business? Or are you going to market it to weekend warriors to?
It's kind of a combination of both. I guess I kind of started off with a vision of being more, people coming up on the weekends and that such. I guess I was envisioning, I've noticed in this area and a little more north that a lot of people are coming up, they're retiring, and they want to do the work themselves, but they just are trying to find where to get the material. So the idea is I'll drop off the excavator or the skid steer, I'll deliver you the 8 yards of loam and the 5 pallets of stone, and then you can build for the weekend and drop the skid steer back off. So, where I was already picking up in bulk for other projects, that's kind of how this, once again, natural progression happened.
You mentioned excavators too. What
Yeah.
size or?
I have a 26,000 pound excavator right now, so it's a 311 cat. So it's not the largest, it's mid-range, I guess. So it does require a CDL license to move that, but yeah, so it'd be a range of equipment, I guess, that I can afford. The bigger they are, the more they cost. So it's maybe it's going to take a little bit of testing the market and seeing which way to run with it most. But I'm not starting off cold turkey because I already have access to this and the means and the material. So I feel like sure it's going to take money, but I feel like I'll be able to get it running easier than just starting from nothing. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how it progressed.
Okay.
And those rental pieces of machinery, are they stored here or at your place on Fairground?
No, everything's gonna come out here. I'm
Okay.
actually trying to find a little bit of relief just from my shop and another reason for moving this way, but everything will be For the most part, sitting out there. I mean, stuff will come through to be serviced as regular as we do now anyhow.
All right, any questions? Let's talk signs. So the sign, you said, Brian, I have the zoning ordinance in front of me, so I should probably look at this myself, but the biggest sign on for an individual would be
100 square feet,
100 square feet. Okay.
possibly double-sided,
Okay.
and no greater than 16 feet in the height.
Okay.
There is one at Boulder Point. You think
Yes,
like something
and-
like that, or?
Yeah, that was one that actually was a signpost looking for tenants. So Tractor Supply wanted a thing down. So Mike McGinley, when he did the site plan review, reserved that area, the same that he did at Riverside Landing, where the front sign is located. That way, you know, they apply to him as the developer to put the signage up. And the same would be true in Colby's case, probably, you know, if he acquires the rest of the land. But they can buy into it too. I mean, it's certainly, you know, it makes more sense if you're looking for a freestanding sign to put it where the traffic is.
Yeah.
And a lot of that came because of the Plymouth Commerce Park, the proliferation, the number of places for let, and the size of the sign dictated that every individual had a sign about that big, that you're trying to see at 40 miles an hour. So after trying several times to, you know, get something, we figured that it was Miriam Bader at the time. We talked about putting more of that in the hands of the planning board since you're the adjudicators of zoning anyway, and you can do that as a greater good type of thing before having to send them back to the zoning board if they wanted to do.
It's kind of nitpicky though, but, so down at Riverside Landing, whatever, we got the general sign, we got Bank of New Hampshire, and Bank of New Hampshire, and Bank of New Hampshire on the building and stuff.
Right.
So,
Just because there's a master sign easement
Yep.
on your property
Yep.
doesn't mean that you lose the right to put up a sign on your property.
Okay, so that's, therefore, we've got the, you know, the sign easement and also the sign at your business
Correct.
with the water feature.
But if we're trying to put the sign easement, remove it from the,
Yeah, the left-hand piece of property.
I'm not removing it from the property or from the development, I'm just relocating it.
right, so it's not gonna be on the,
Well, it was currently proposed for this area, so the current sign for this lot sits right here right now, so I was looking to shift it here. This parcel, same impact square footage wise, is just relocated adjacent to, which is the pump easement station. Figured it should probably be located as, you know, close to the road as possible.
okay, so the new sign easement is going to be next to the pump station?
This is the easement for the development, which could potentially have multiple signs in it per parcel.
Okay, and so you want the easement will be there, and then the sign for this current business will
Correct.
be at the new sign and water feature as
Correct.
marked on the map here, okay. All right. So, the new sign will just adhere to the current zoning ordinance, but if we want to set any size limits on the sign easement itself, now would be the time,
Should I read the chapter for you, Madam Chair?
please.
Master sign plan can be submitted, reviewed, and approved by the planning board as part of the site plan review process. Master sign plan can exempt applicant from the existing freestanding sign requirements provided the proposed signage meets section 408.1 purpose as determined by the planning board. The master sign plan shall include the following information: site dimensions and layout, proposed placement of the signage, square footage of each sign panel, and total square footage of the sign of the signs, materials that the sign will be made of, total height of the sign, clearance to the bottom. Ideally, an architectural rendering is recommended. It will indicate how the sign will relate to existing site conditions as the existing buildings on the site and abutting site, how the sign will appear from the road, and how the site will relate to existing topography. So,
This is something that can come back before us at a different time.
Correct, and also, I mean, to have an agreement, I guess, that's finalized without the additional parcel owners
Yep.
here. I don't, because I'd be making a decision for the other two landowners, which one is under agreement. I heard dog kennel. I don't know, but then the other one was owned by the bank still. So
Because when we had, with the Riverside Landing, I remember they came back with a master sign plan,
Okay.
totally separate, so
So would that be a condition of approval,
the,
or?
the master sign needs to come back for, is that a site plan? How does it, what is that?
well, wouldn't
It's at site plan review, so,
Yeah.
well, I'm just trying to figure out if you want him to come back under site plan review for the master sign plan, which, again, we don't have the documentation for, because what he's proposing doesn't fit the application that we have here. But, he does a very adequate job of explaining exactly what it is. And since what's required, we don't have now are just dimensions,
Right.
that would, should be pretty easy to fill in.
Right, so we could add a condition of approval that the master sign plan comes back to us
Yes.
for approval.
Yes. And we can work out the details
Yeah.
of how it's done.
Right, and this isn't the first time we've done this, so we can
Correct.
figure out what we did last time. Because that seemed like that worked. There's a sign there now. Okay, so the conditions, if we were to approve this, I'm seeing two of them at this point. One is the salt storage, covered and solid.
correct. Once the pile goes out there,
Yep.
I had done the same at my current
Yeah.
shop. But it's just made light of it because
Yeah.
I know it's an issue with the state. I mean,
Yep, it's standard practice.
yeah, I'm registered with the state with the
You've
Green
been-
Snow Pro.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say,
program.
I've seen your name on there,
So-
so, which is great, there's not a ton of Green Snow Pros around here, so. All right, and the other thing is the, master sign plan needs to come back to the board for approval. Any other questions, comments, motions?
Would you like me to make a motion?
I want somebody to make a motion, or somebody to say something.
I would like to make a motion to approve this application with the,
With those two mentioned conditions.
yes, those two conditions about the sign.
The two conditions was not this
Sign.
Salt storage.
Salt, sign and salt.
So the condition would be that I would ask for approval to.
If you put it in and you don't have it, I'm gonna come after you.
Oh, okay. So I'm approved. It's approved to install the pavement.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
storage as necessary.
Yeah, and it just,
as long as it's covered. But if I didn't install it, then I'd be hearing from you.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we just want you to come back to us for the master sign
Correct.
plan.
Not
Yeah.
a problem.
Yeah.
It's not in the
Yeah.
very near future, anyhow, because I'm would be waiting for the other parcels to come in to share their lovely cause.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. We need a second,
I second.
as directed by Chris. All right, so the motion is to approve this application with the conditions to make sure salt storage is done appropriately and that the applicant will come back with the master sign plan before it goes in. Okay. Any other discussion from the board? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Colby.
Frank, have a good evening. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have anything else. I think that a lot of the master plan stuff is in Steve's hands
Okay.
right now with his class. I just don't have it, I'm not prepped on any of that.
I only put that in because it looked to be a fairly quick meeting.
Right, no, I think always put that in, and, yeah, I think that's good, unless anyone has anything else to add. Oh,
Administrative matters,
yes,
being the goad. We were going to look at, now the rest of the board is here, I don't even know how you call it, reduced or, informal or non-board site plan review. I think that's, and it was pretty apparent tonight that that would have been real handy to have. I mean, they wouldn't even have come before you, I don't think. And you can certainly put conditions in there as to what you don't want to see and what you do. And what was the other thing? Changing the wording in our bylaws and rules of procedure to include the words wetlands specifically.
Bylaws or in the,
And the rules, I guess. Wherever we see it in our documents,
Okay.
referring to the natural environment, we should include that.
okay.
It
So.
would have been handy had we had that before the legal case.
Right. So we can do that fairly easily. Could you email me the Word documents for both of these? Although maybe they're probably on the website the way they are. I can start tracking changes in this fairly
Okay.
quickly. I know I said I'd do this. I'm just up to my eyeballs in 2 jobs and among other things right now. So, I will try and, if we want to do like phase 1 and make sure we're covered with that, then we can make those edits, approve them, and have them go to a public hearing at some point in October, November.
And for situations like this, you can pull or have a public hearing at any time.
Okay.
The
Just have to
ones that
notice it.
later are usually around amendment season, so, we're under strict timelines there.
Yep.
Yeah, that would work.
We just need to be able to notice it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I think adding, I know we get a lot of these applications that do need the site plan review light. I feel like those are not, that's not as easy of an adjustment to our site plan regs. I don't think. I also want to make sure that we're not building our site plan light on the presence of a Brian Murphy who's reviewing applications carefully. I want to make sure that whatever we're doing is not relying on
Transferable forward. Thank you.
your attention to detail that we just
I
don't.
thought it was a slam coming, and it turned out to be a
Oh. The next person might not do such a stellar job, or might not know the zoning ordinances inside and out.
Yeah,
so-
and certainly that would, it would be anybody within the position of, that reviews these prior to you
Right.
would be able to see, according to a checklist that,
Yep.
I mean, you could probably, is it time to drop the 100 square foot addition to buildings? That seems like it's pretty much focused on the downtown area, or maybe that could be put into the outer zones where there is more elbow room. But things like that, I mean, they pop up and you think of them and then you forget them,
Yeah, so we need to, yes, but if we need to get the wetlands in there sooner rather than later,
Yes.
that's quick. I can handle that right now, but trying to do a full up, if we're trying, right now I feel like getting wetlands into our subdivision site plan regs, that's being held up by trying to do something bigger. So I think maybe phase 1 is make sure we're making it an adjustment now, and then maybe a more deliberate adjustment in the future. Because there's no rule against us making an adjustment in 2019 and then doing this again in March.
Right.
So, okay,
Sounds good.
all right. Good talk, all right.
You got 2 words.
All right, anything else?
I just a question,
Yeah.
Rebecca. Would it make more sense, to me, it seems to make more sense for us to review the application as complete and then have the applicant do the presentation? Because it just seems weird to have them come up and do their presentation and then we, step aside. Is there like a reason to do it?
I'm pretty sure
It's
that's
the
what
chairman's discretion.
I think it's what the bylaws say. Or is there a site plan procedure? So business meeting, we go to the, All right, so in our bylaws, Article 8, acceptance of an application. The board process for considering acceptance of subdivision or site plan review application is as follows. Applicant or designee makes a presentation to the board, including requests for waivers on items required in the application. The board seeks clarification on identified issues. The board determines if the application is complete. The board votes on, so we can go make it smoother. So we do need to do it in that way. I know that the way I've seen it done has been the way I've been doing it. I agree, it's a little awkward.
Maybe if the discussion was limited to the waivers?
I think if we just let I'm okay with just letting the discussion go, but we just, at certain point, we need to bring it back to determine if it's complete. And I think determining if it's complete is very important, because I think it might, if, I've seen us do, I'm trying to remember what the case was, that if we had just really gone through a couple points in the completeness, we might have saved ourselves trouble later on. I've also, in discussion with planning board members from other towns, same thing. If they'd really been careful about the discussion about the completeness of the application, they wouldn't have gotten themselves into a spiraled situation later on. So making sure we're thinking about everything carefully, and again, we're not always going to be able to rely on Brian to be, I think you'll be detail oriented for a while, but but I just want to make sure we're not just relying on you to determine that it's complete, that we're looking at everything, at the application carefully as well.
I do understand Chris's point, because it almost seems like the applicant is presenting twice.
Right.
I agree.
And also, what could happen is we could have saved the applicant and ourselves a lot of time, because the applicant might present, then we look at the application and realize, wait, this is incomplete, you got to go do these things, and then come back, and it just seems like if we decided that from the beginning, we could have saved the applicant having to present to us that night, saved ourselves some time. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Or it just seems like, I don't know, it just seems like the completion of the application should be established before anything else happens.
Yeah, I think we still need to hear from the applicant to get some context.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a natural stop to when the applicant's like, okay, now we can talk about completeness. We can also just let them give their full presentation, then determine the completeness. And what I think I've been allowing for a lot more board discussion than our bylaws suggest. But our bylaws say, we vote on, so we seek clarification on identified issues. The board determines if the application is complete. We vote on that, and then we move on to the public hearing. So we can open the public hearing up right after that, the determination of completeness.
But if we have questions, do you ask them while he or her are presenting, or do you wait till you've approved everything? You've approved the application. It looks good, and then you open it up to the public, and then you bring it back, and we ask questions at that point.
Yeah, that's why I've been trying to allow for questions as we go. So, I'm willing to entertain questions whenever, but the other awkward thing is there's now only 2 microphones. So when someone wants to speak, they've got to get to one of the 2 microphones. So that means the applicant, where they might just always just stand there, they have to move to allow somebody to speak. So I don't know if this is addressing the issue at all, because I think that we still need to, the applicant still needs to be presenting to us. And then we need to be looking through and determining the completeness. But I think we can let them present just fully.
Maybe, or just, broad strokes of what the project is. You're going to determine, by viewing the application, the information that's down in the weeds. So it's, like the gentleman here, it's a 38 by 38 slab with a 26 by 36 freezer on it that's located to the rear of the building. It doesn't encroach on property lines. It's a commercial expansion greater than 100 square feet. And at that point, you know what the project is. And you can formulate questions about, what is the topography in the backyard? at that point. But you determine that, there's enough there that you can view the application in light of the project. But, depending on the presenter, it could be a very technical discussion. And I think, in terms of alacrity, Chris is right. In terms of getting a full hearing, I believe that you're right, Madam Chair, that, just let them do it. Besides, it may be relevant in the more complicated developments than, like the ones that we've been seeing now. None of the things that we've been looking at have really had issues, that were either hidden or really overt. It's just normal development kind of stuff. So I think, you're probably doing the applicant both a service and a disservice by making him present twice, but the service is he gets to hammer his point home.
So I think we can all, I'm happy to just let the applicant go, run with the presentation and then rule on the completeness after we hear. But I would just ask the board to maybe save those questions that are a little less application specific or the checklist specific until after we rule on the completeness. But I think we just want to make sure that we're not asking for things later on that make the application complete that when we've already determined, like, a traffic study kind of comes to mind. Like, there's certain things, and I don't have an application in front of me, there's certain things that we might want to have to make our ruling, and really, is the application complete unless we have those things?
Or at least recognize that they're there, like requesting an AOT. You're not going to get it that night.
Right.
But it'll be something that the applicant who will either have it in process or, better find out about it fast. He may not be aware of the triggers
Yeah.
for that kind of application, so.
Because I think some of the questions we have later on, it's like we should have asked those before we determined it's complete.
Right.
So I think sounds like maybe if does that work for you, Chris, if we front load that?
Any of it works for me. It would just seem,
Redundant.
sometimes I wonder about, it just seems to me that the applicant then is, wait a minute, they're taking a little bit taken aback, I think. But,
No, I think it's good because I agree with you, and honestly, the reason why I've done it the way I've done it, a lot of it stemmed from sitting right next to someone who used to be the chair of the board at one point, and halfway through the presentation, I got an elbow that was like, we need to rule if it's complete. So I would rather not interrupt the applicant to determine the completeness, but I do want to make sure we bring the discussion, when we start asking some questions, we need to bring it back to determining whether it's complete before we start talking about it.
Maybe you should reserve comment to the board after the acceptance and then open the public hearing.
Okay.
To answer specific questions that
Yeah.
came up,
Okay.
and which doesn't rule out the fact that you can ask questions throughout the entire process. But at least at that point, it would be a progression from, the acceptance to, dealing with the fine points. And then when you're satisfied, let's hear what other people have to
Okay.
say.
I would love to not interrupt the applicant when they're presenting. I just thought that's what I was supposed to do. All right. So, yeah, give me an elbow if I should be interrupted.
Bonnie, it's your
Your elbow,
long-
you're the closest.
Long elbow. Anything else before anyone jumps on a motion? I am not here the next work session on October 3rd. Are you here?
I'm here. Grace isn't here on that one either.
Okay.
So,
We'll have Steve in his class, so,
okay.
but I am not
That
here.
makes it easy.
Yeah. Okay. As long as you're good to run the meeting and let people, well, I guess we don't have any applicants, because then you could just let them present whenever you wanted
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
That's right, you're the chair. You have power.
So much. All right.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
I would like to second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No one's opposed, right?